Good afternoon. I'm super excited about this Smart City panel. I'm going to welcome my esteemed colleagues to the stage. And I guess I'll do some introductions. So I've already been introduced. So we have Nicole. She's from the city of Cary. We have Tanya from Australia. And we have Sven as well from Germany. So I'm super excited about this discussion. Smart cities can do a lot to drive inclusion, drive economic prosperity. And what's really exciting about this panel is that the geographic representation is tremendous. So we have representation from all around the globe. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. And Tanya, I'm going to hand you the clicker because you have some slides you'd like to share. So
I do.
The first question is, we're just going to jump right into it. How are you leveraging LoRaWAN to deliver IoT services to your citizens?
Sure. Oops. There we go. Well, hello, everyone. This is my first ever LoRa Alliance event, so I'm really excited to be here. And it certainly hasn't disappointed, that's for sure. So I'm Tanya Lipus. I'm the Executive Coordinator for Smart City at the City of Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. So I lead the Smart City team for the Gold Coast. It's a relatively small team, a team of 5, and we have a very specific focus on the Internet of Things and data analytics, and then we try and link that to economic growth for our city as well. So as you can see from this slide here, we're a coastal city. We're the second largest local government in Australia, and we service a population of around 645,000 residents and over 13 million visitors to the coast every year. So with the size and shape of our city brings some complex challenges. So we have 70 kilometres of coastline, and about 45 minutes to the west we have some really dense forests, and we're quite a linear city as well. So when implementing a technology such as LoRaWAN, we really needed to take into consideration the types of use cases that we were going to deploy, the terrain and the impacts of coverage over that dense rainforest, as well as accessibility to infrastructure to allow that deployment. And our strategy right from the beginning was to ensure that we built a network that was robust enough for commercialization and had the ease of scalability as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tanya.
No, I'm still going.
Still going?
Yeah.
Still going?
Oh,
that's back.
no, it's not going back. There we go. Okay, so we have Australia's largest local government-owned LoRaWAN. It's quite extensive. We completed this in 2019. We have just over 95 gateways, 5,500 devices on the network, and that's due to scale in the next 12 months. And then with our partner, the National Narrowband Network Communications Company, we're about to launch that to the community. So we'll have students, developers, local businesses being able to access that network by August this year, which is a really exciting opportunity. And then links to that economic growth for our city as well. So just to give you a little bit of some context around some of the projects that we have on our network as well. So we've got, these are just a few, so we've got quite a range, but, and I'll talk about leak detection in the next slide. However, for the picture on your right is a people counter, and it seems like such a fairly kind of surface level or basic use case, but for us, we deploy these in some really localized areas, so public toilet blocks, beach access points, and what this does is it's starting to inform our service levels of those particular assets, and we can determine whether or not they need kind of improvement. For the toilet blocks, for example, we can determine whether or not if they're being utilised. If they're not, we can either relocate them or kind of just basically remove them. And it's the same with the barbecues as well. So that's the top picture. picture there, so we can get usage statistics on how often they're being used, but also we get real-time fault reports sent to us as well, so we can proactively go out and repair those. The bottom picture there is probably one of my favourite projects, and it's a really collaborative kind of project. We're working with a local school to deploy some environmental sensors, and this one in particular is looking at water quality of a lake that they have on their property. It's the city working with the school, working with state government, a nationwide IT industry body, and our network partner Triple N Co, and really teaching the kids about the IoT ecosystem and also about environmental sustainability as well. So leak detection, this is one of our largest use cases and our first use case on LoRaWAN. So it's one of our more complex ones too. So we have over 180,000 water meters across the city, both residential and commercial. And that's part of the reason why we chose LoRaWAN as well. So that it's a lower cost technology, and again, easily, in terms of the ability to scale, it's quite easy. So the objective of this project is obviously leak detection. So we've saved millions of litres of water and dollars over the last 18 months. We've had over 11,000 leaks detected, which is quite impressive as well. So to date, we've got about 5,000 water meters on the network across commercial properties at the moment. And then in the next 12 months, we'll have an additional 5,000 water meters deployed. And then we're working on a 10-year rollout plan to develop and scale the project, which will have integrated water meters. Again, our most largest and most challenging project to date. All of our water meters are underground in concrete pits, concrete lids, metal lids. So in terms of the penetration, we did find some tricky sites, but to counteract that, we worked with our network partner to look at ways to mitigate that. So we would either put an external antenna on the device, add an additional gateway, or change around the gateway antennas too. So, I mean, in general, LoRaWAN has been a really great option for us. Again, easily scalable, and the ability to, it's vendor agnostic, so we can use multiple devices from different vendors and still get the same outcome. So happy to talk more about that project. I'll be around for the rest of the afternoon, but I might hand it over to Nicole.
Sven, actually.
Sorry.
And I was just going to say, Tanya, I like the Barbie, use case.
Yeah.
When I think of Australia, it's like throw a shrimp on the Barbie, right? I'm a silly American, but so Sven, let's hear from your perspective how you're leveraging LoRaWAN.
Thanks. Warm welcome from me. I'm happy to be here in Paris, and I'm pleased to present to you our small but fine IoT project and our experiences in starting. My name is Sven Anders, and I'm the head of shared service at Stadtwerke Bernau and the project manager for digitization. The Stadtwerke Bernau was newly founded after the German reunification 30 years ago. Bernau by Berlin is the name that just is located near the German capital in the northeast of Germany. We therefore benefit from the strong economic development and population growth in the region, and has more than doubled in 30 years with over 40,000 inhabitants. We currently employ 115 people and generate annual sales of 37 million euros. Our main business consists of electricity, gas, heat and water, and wastewater supply. As decentralized energy producers and suppliers, municipal utilities form a basis for the successful implementation of the German energy transition. They are active at numerous stages of the value chain, for example, in generation, distribution, and sales. We develop, advise on, and sell PV systems, storage units, and electrical charging columns, prepare heating cost bills, sub-metering, and more regionally, manage all the city's parking garages. We also promote cultural and sporting life in the city. So we are responsible for municipal services of general interest with social and economic responsibility. And in the future, this will also include digital infrastructure. And that was the reason why we got involved with smart city, IoT, and LoRaWAN.
I love the diversity of all the different use cases. I mean, they run a very, very wide gamut. And I think that demonstrates the power of LoRaWAN. And, and Tanya talked to the economics of it as well, right? Being very cost effective, being able to deploy it very widely. So, Nicole, last but not least.
Sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're still going.
The last sign, sorry. We developed an IoT project based on the vision of the smart city from the perspective of a municipal utility. The question was, how can we become part of the smart city and at the same time play a central role? The most important factors: regionality, data security and trust, new forms of organization, municipal cooperation, smart mobility, participation, and training and qualification. For the implementation of the guiding principles, we saw LoRaWAN as the entry point and future viability for us. First, how did we answer? We wanted to find a direct entry in small steps. Secondly, what was important for us? Participation. We need partners, supporters, our customers and employees from the beginning. And at last, what to look for? Think big. In the meantime, we are planning a project with the city government, a cooperation with the digital agency of Brandenburg for the proposal of city app, a cooperation with the regional university HNE in Eberswalde for use of LoRaWAN in agriculture. And currently, we also have a request from the Big Berlin. How did you start so successfully with LoRaWAN? That's amazing for me, from a little town. Yes. Current status of the IoT project with LoRaWAN: we have 10 big quarters, over 4,000 sensors, 10 gateways on the chimneys of our cogeneration plants, and many new construction projects. Our IoT project based on LoRaWAN as a new business segment of Stadtwerke Bernau with a future technology and strong partner and network, and of course with committed employees. And that's how you get started on a big issue in a small town with a small project with small steps. We are the driver for the smart city in Bernau. Our thanks to Senna for a good partnership.
Great. Thank you, Sven. Sorry if I cut you off earlier there.
You will.
So Nicole, would love to hear your perspective on how LoRaWAN's changing the way that Cary, North Carolina is.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Cary and then talk about LoRaWAN, and I have some thoughts around the use of it going forward. Maybe not. There we go. So just a little bit about Cary, because I'm sure you all know exactly where it is. So it borders Raleigh, which is the capital city in North Carolina. We've got a population of about 180,000. We've got some big companies there, including SAS, which I'll talk about as a partner. And if any of you have teenagers that play Fortnite, Epic is headquartered in Cary. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance for us in partnership and what it's like to be a municipality, at least from my perspective in North Carolina, and probably I would say anywhere else, I can speak maybe for the United States, that it's a challenge for us to do this type of work on our own. We're competing for talent with companies like Epic and SAS and Google, and so we look to our community, knowing that they have their employees live and work and play there, to really become part of that community and help us solve the problems that they live in. And so we formed a partnership with SAS and Semtech, which is also a big sponsor here today, and Microsoft to really figure out how to solve challenges of smart cities or connected communities, as I like to call it, and came up with the idea of building out a center of excellence and then helping us to learn. So we don't know what we don't know, but really helping us to learn how to use the LoRaWAN network and why that technology is so critically important to a municipality. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Our first kind of really big use case was around stormwater and flooding, which I think most people can appreciate. We had some houses that were getting flooded, and we actually had to purchase them back. This is actually really a parking lot that floods, and how to figure out how to move from that reactive place to predictive. And when I mean reactive, it literally was a citizen. We like to say the citizens were the sensors. So they would call in and say, hey, the street's flooded, or whatever it may be. And there's a lot of steps that go in between finding a road that's flooded and being able to solve the problem, and whether that's even just notification, changing traffic signals, getting emergency services out there. There's all telling the news, alerting people, and there's a lot that goes in between that. And we managed it very well, but we're very reactive. And now with the help of our partners, we're moving to a place we're doing modeling and going to get, knock on wood, to a predictive place very soon. But I use this use case because Cary sits at the top of a river basin. And like anywhere else, there are no borders to our city or town. So when you drive through it, you go to, like I talk about my day to work, how I go to work and travel. It's the same thing with water. Well, it travels. And it travels to our neighboring communities. And so we want to be able to alert them and let them know when flooding is perhaps coming. And one of the great things I think about implementing a LoRaWAN network is that ability to scale, and that it's a feasible solution for municipalities to put up, and something that Cary could manage it for other places, or we can manage it, put it up pretty quickly. And that is very interesting to a municipality in terms of investment in dollars and what it can do to your community, and making sure that we think a little bit broader, not just, like I said, Cary, but all of the places in between. So for us, it's a perfect solution for us to be able to do this, not just for ourselves, but for our neighboring communities. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is we have we have a new downtown Cary Park. It's about $70 million in a very small 6-acre space, which is small. It has everything from a dog park to an amphitheater to a putting green to a beer garden.
I want to go there.
Right. It has a little something for everyone. It's also surrounded by new development of housing. And so it provides this amazing opportunity for us to add all sorts of devices so that we can monitor and predict how the park is going to be activated in the future, where things are going to go, what are the sound levels, so that we don't get complaints from these neighbors that just bought these really expensive new housing. So this is going to be a really great opportunity for us, I think, to have, I guess we can call it a smart park. And what that looks like, it also allows us a little bit of a playground to be able to test out new technologies that then we could deploy elsewhere in the community.
That's excellent. And I love the fact that you partnered with big technology companies, because this isn't an easy journey. And how does a city even get started, right, on that journey? And so that's a nice segue to our second kind of panel question. And Nicole, I'd like to start with you. I mean, the whole concept of a smart city is quite broad, and it can mean different things to different municipalities. So I'm wondering, I mean, the flooding example, I mean, that's an amazing use case because, like you said, you can share that information with other, nearby towns and that sort of thing. But what were some of the criteria around prioritizing the different IoT services? I mean, was it organic like the park, or was there a process that that you went
Still
through?
like this? No. Yeah, I mean, the flooding, you know, we were getting feedback, obviously, from the community, so that became a priority. But previous to that, we actually had set up our campus as a lab, and that was about 5 years ago. And that was really just to learn about smart cities technology and
Right.
what that looked like, because we didn't want to deploy, whether it was smart parking, smart lighting, whatever it may be, without thoroughly understanding all the components of it and making sure that we built the right infrastructure
Sure.
around it. It turns out it was one of the smartest things we did, because our council saw that we were doing this in a very methodical way. We also leveraged our partners the best that we could to help advise us and help build these solutions together. And so, I mean, that's really how we came up with the flooding for the priority. I think the park is our next one, because the park for us will be our signature kind of thing in Cary. And so there's a lot riding on it.
Yeah.
So that will be, I think, that's going to be the next one for us. But prioritization is one of those things that, you know, I'll say whatever today, but tomorrow, I'm going to be honest, I could say something completely
Right.
different, right? Because as we all know, in a municipality, there's all sorts of factors that go into
Yes.
prioritization. So it may switch. So I think more importantly, in terms of not just the prioritization, it's really making sure you've got the fundamentals in place, getting your infrastructure, your architecture, because once you've nailed that down, putting the sensors, right, like the deployment of the projects become a little bit easier, and they should get to a place where it's almost plug and play.
Right, right. Excellent. And I love the fact that you're going to use that park as sort of a real sandbox, as it were, for testing, you know, new use cases. I know I live in the city of Austin, in Austin, Texas, and the only way to do things like, you know, report, you know, noise levels, because we're a music city as well, is that you have to use an app. We call it a 311 app. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not very, I think, you know, effective. So some great examples, Nicole. Thanks for sharing. And Sven, so I want to hand the same question off to you. I did comment that a lot of what you're doing is very, very broad, but how did you go about the practice of prioritizing what you wanted to do with LoRaWAN?
Jetzt musst du mir mal helfen, bitte.
Frag dich, was waren die Priorisierungen? Was waren die Gründe, dass du LoRaWAN gemacht hast?
Ist das jetzt die zweite Frage? Oder?
So may you explain only the challenges then? Gib ihm at least die Antwort.
Yeah. Also, as explained in my presentation earlier, our IT project is based on the vision of the smart city with a municipal utility as a central player. The question was, how can we become part of the smart city and make an active contribution? And what can we do with our competences, our employees, and our customers to enter the smart city and be ready for the digital future? The challenge was not the convinced employees, customers, and partners, especially the city, of our IT project and smart city at the PowerPoint level. Yes, but we concrete, tangible, real project. And so we ask ourselves, which partner fits you? Who is competent and can take the view of an energy supplier, a meter factorer, and IoT supporter? We have found this with Senna. Which business field is suitable to generate revenue in addition to testing? For us, sub-metering. And which technology also help us with the efficient transmission of energy data, stable, secure, and cost-effective? It's LoRaWAN. With small steps, and it worked.
Great, thank you. Tanya, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I might. I think in terms of prioritisation, I think we're quite lucky as a city that owns their own water utility. So right from the beginning, we had the water use case. However, with any other use case, it's been a really tough journey trying to, I guess, convince people that an IoT project or LoRaWAN is the way to go to look at asset management or to drive efficiencies. So, you know, it's probably been about 2.5 years talking to different sections within our organisation, whether it's, you know, the parking meters or bins, and we're only just starting to get traction now, and a lot of that has been about educating and upskilling our staff internally. So again, back to prioritisation, I think it depends on basically business cases and looking at that return on investment and overall, like in terms of, is it driving efficiencies, is it reputational, does it have a really good kind of citizen engagement component too? So I feel as though we're kind of at that kind of breaking point at the moment, because we do actually have quite a few projects coming our way soon. And I mentioned a small team of 5, however, only 2 of them are working on IoT projects, so we might have to quickly grow that team as well. So,
Awesome. I'd like to start with you on the third topic as well, and Nicole touched on this, that, you know, this journey is sometimes somewhat organic, right? I mean, you'll put a plan in place, and I think you'll execute against that plan, and then, you know, things come up. So I'm wondering, what lessons did you learn kind of going through this process, and were there any big surprises for you?
Specifically around LoRaWAN, the deployment of our network, I think the biggest kind of surprise for us, we thought it was going to be easy in terms of the deployment, and you know, in some situations it probably is. However, we had some kind of strict guidelines around, we wanted the gateways to be on our own infrastructure, and we wanted them to be all hardwired in, so we didn't want them running on solar. So we do have a project that's using a similar system that's running on solar, and because we haven't had as much sun as we usually do, the network's gone down. So, and that's for our parking technology project. So we're literally losing millions and millions of dollars. So again, back to that challenge, it was trying to identify the sites that had access to power. So deployment actually took probably a little bit longer than what we were hoping, but obviously we got there in the end. So, I mean, as we expand the network too, and especially in that dense rainforest area, we will need to look at other types of deployment options, like using solar, because there's no power out there at all.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And Nicole, what about for you? Any big aha moments? Any lessons learned as you went through this process?
I don't know if there was an aha moment. We knew we had a lot of trees in Cary.
Oh, yeah, I
lot of
know, because
trees.
I ride bikes in North Carolina.
And everybody
It's very
loves their
wooded.
trees.
Yeah.
I just don't think we knew the impact that might have.
Okay.
So.
So from a propagation perspective and that sort of thing?
Which is easily solved. It's just, you know, it's one of those, like, how did we not know this? We know that we've got all of these trees.
Right.
You know.
You know, I once learned that, you know, as human beings, we actually refract, you know, spectrum signals as well. So we're big, giant walking bottles of water. And that affects, you know, the planning of, you know, cellular networks, private networks, LoRaWAN networks as well. But so Sven, from your perspective, any big lessons learned?
Yes, clearly. The start with a specific pilot project was very good for us. However, it is advantageous to target a scenario or a major project or a business area right away, which was submarine as described. Of course, this is only possible if you have comrades in arms who are enthusiastic about data digitization and automated processes. It's clear that you invest a lot of time in the beginning, but you don't make a profit. Of course, you need support from the management. You need startup capital in form of money and time. And you need to know that's a journey. And so we develop a roadmap. Another aspect is that not all colleagues automatically like it. For the electricity meter, there is an electrician. For gas, sure. For heat, also sure. But for the smoker detector or the CO2 sensor, there was no one. The fitter said, I'm not mounting that. There's no cable on it. In front of the customer.
Right.
Great. Yes, that was really the case. So the employees also have to find new ways, and that has to be committed communicated and advertised.
Excellent, great perspective. Yeah, you mentioned that sometimes that upfront investment, you don't always see the business outcome trail, but I think as I've sat through some of the sessions over the last 2 days, I'm seeing the impact that LoRaWAN can have from a sustainability perspective, and also almost an immediate payback perspective in certain use cases. But that's important, especially in, I think, at least in corporate America, in my experience, because before becoming an industry analyst, I spent 30 plus years there. There was often the requirement to have an immediate profit within that first quarter, or you move on. And for a lot of these projects around smart cities, you're going to have to make that upfront investment, and sometimes that ROI is going to trail over time. But this has been a great discussion, and unfortunately, sadly, we're entering our final topic. And I think for me, this is the million-dollar question. I think the audience is going to get a lot out of this. But Nicole, let's start with you. What advice would you give cities that are embarking on a smart cities IoT journey?
Sure. Great question. I think cities need to find the right partners. I think you also need to learn from each other. We're very careful that whatever we build in Cary, we want to make sure that it can be replicated in another municipality, understanding that they have similar resources as we do, and how important it is to work together with other municipalities. So I think for us, it's really about learning. It's about educating. It takes a lot of work, and you mentioned it. It's a lot of work to educate folks on technology that they're not used to being aware of and the value of it. I would say I feel like that's half of my job is educating and getting outside. So the other thing I talk about is getting out of my seat and going into the community, whether it's into other corporations or other nonprofits or businesses, and really learning from them and their experience and how we can apply that in the town.
I just think that that partnership with SAS and Microsoft is so strong, and you're really leveraging some technology heavyweights there, because at the end of the day, two or three heads or four heads or 20 heads are better than one. So, Tanya, sort of what?
Can I comment on that one second?
Sure.
Because that is a really good point, and I share this with my colleagues all the time. Is you just gotta ask.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's just a lot of times that I'm like, go ask the companies that are in your community, and build those relationships with them so that they truly become a partner. I think we don't get out enough when we sometimes just stay in our own little worlds, but it's incredibly important to build those partnerships, and that's how we're successful.
Awesome. Tanya?
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Nicole. I think finding the right industry partner, but also network partner too. So Ananenco for the City of Gold Coast has been, hugely valuable just in terms of deployment, but also being able to provide that expertise and advice around devices and solutions as well. I think investing in upskilling and reskilling staff is really important, and I think that's probably the next phase of a lot of cities deploying technology, but also not just on the technology, but the data. So helping them understand the why of their project and understanding how they can use their data to make those decisions. And I think the other advice that I can give is, we always talk about scale of projects and use cases, and scale for some organisations or local governments doesn't necessarily mean thousands and thousands. So we have projects that are at full scale and it's only 80. So don't be scared off that you have to have thousands and thousands of devices deployed.
Yeah. I love the fact that you touched on upskilling. I think that's a tremendous opportunity. I mean, we are living in uncertain economic times. And, we have this phenomenon, I think it's happening globally, the Great Resignation, where people are reevaluating what they're doing and they're looking to skill up and that sort of thing. And I love the fact that, what you're doing in Australia is also pulling that along with it, with the technology. Yeah. So that's really, really exciting. And so, Sven, let's end with you. So what advice?
My advice is quite clear and short. At first, don't form big teams. Okay. Don't do big project planning. Yes, form a small team with people who want to do it. Find about the experiences of other companies or cities. Find a good partner like us with Senna and get started. Yes, in small steps, no matter what the topic, and it works.
I love it. So stay agile. Don't put too much layer. That tends to kind of muck the works up there. So great advice. Well, I want to thank all the panelists. It's been a fantastic discussion, very intriguing. We've got a lot of different perspectives from all around the world, and I'm sure if anyone in the audience there has any questions after the session's over, they would be more than happy to answer those. So thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, guys.